for a little bit, we've been focusing a series upon the topic and the conversation of love. And someone sent me that link this week, and it was kind of running through my mind, and so I thought it'd be a great way to share, a great reminder of the passage that we have been talking about in 1 Corinthians 13. And so this morning we're going to be wrapping up this series, and I want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek in terms of what is happening in the next couple of weeks, because we're going to be starting a new series that is going to be titled Big Butts in the Bible. You don't need to clear out your ears. That's what he said, big butts in the Bible. I'm not going to tell you the spelling of the butts. You're going to have to come back and find out. But it's essentially going to be dealing with some of the elephants in the room of church. You know, some of the conversations that we may not want to talk about, but we're kind of interested about. Topics around the line of what is going on? What is our understanding about heaven and hell? What do we believe about that? What does that mean for us in our life? So we're gonna talk about that in a couple weeks. We're also going to talk about the elephant in the room around the issue of what happens when God does not respond to a situation in a way we wish he did. And maybe we see a circumstance or a situation, we pray about it, and we read the Bible about it, and we ask God to intervene, and it doesn't happen as we would want. What do we do? We're going to talk about that next week. And so we hope that you'll be able to come and you'll join us. It's going to be a conversation around some of these issues that perhaps you have thought about or maybe you should start thinking about so that faith becomes a reality in the midst of all of life. But that's next week. And so come, join us, bring someone as well that perhaps is working through some of these questions. But this morning we're going to wrap up our series on the topic of love. And as we've talked about the last couple of weeks, if you haven't been with us, that's okay. You can kind of jump right in. But love is one of those well-worn words that we use the idea of love to describe many things in life. But ultimately, what is love? What does it mean? What does it start to look like in our lives when we talk about love? What is God's love for us? And so my hope is that this has been a little bit more granular, a little bit more where we can have some takeaways to have a better understanding around what love truly is. But for those of you that were here last week, you may remember I gave you a little bit of homework. Do any of you remember the homework? A lot of glazed over eyes, right? A lot of heads looking down. Other people who were here, I wasn't here last week, so I'm completely off the hook. No, you're not. I'm bringing everyone into the same room here. So this is what the homework was. It was this week to be intentional about acts of love and kindness, right? We always talk about random acts of kindness, like they just suddenly happen, right? No. We want to be more intentional about that, right? And so you are asked every day to act in a loving way to someone. I'm assuming you all did it because you're all above the bar. You're all great people. So, but I just want to take a moment, even if you weren't here, turn to the person next to you. You have like 45 seconds. So it doesn't have to be something grandiose, something like blow the mind sort of thing, but just simply share with the person next to you one of two things. Okay, I'm letting some of you off the hook. One of two things. An act of love and kindness that you offer to someone else this week, or an act of love or kindness that someone showed to you. Okay? Not earth-shattering, people. All right, you got like 45 seconds. It's all yours. Go. All right, I'm going to kind of bring you back. You know, anytime I ask one of those questions, my greatest fear is silence, right? Especially in this case, right? We've been talking about love for the last 2 weeks, and then I'm like, just share something random about love, and then crickets. And I'm like, Oh my goodness, we're going back to like remedial love if that was the case. So well done. I'm glad there was conversation. I'm glad it was continuing to go. I was trying to like eavesdrop a little bit on what was happening. But hopefully this becomes a reality for us in the midst of life, that the love is not just simply something that we talk about. Love is not just simply something that may occasionally happen to us, but that love becomes a reality in the midst of all of life. And as we've been working through this series the last couple of weeks, we've reminded ourselves that love is far more than just an emotion. Love is far more just simply based upon how I feel, or love is more than just simply what a conditions may be around us, but love is a commitment. Love is an act for someone else based upon our commitment to them. But this morning, as we wrap up, I want to talk about a tension that I experience in my life, and perhaps you experience in your life as well, when it comes to this intentional act of showing love. And to kind of help us out a little bit, I'm going to throw up the passage from 1 Corinthians again, and just read it through. Because here the Apostle Paul is getting real intentional with us about not just simply talking about love. He just doesn't simply say, hey, go and love others. He's like, okay, I'm going to break it down for you. And this is what he says. He says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. Love is not rude, it is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. And then here's the clincher. It says, love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Rather profound words that Paul talks about. But as you start to look and you start to hear those words, he's really raising the bar, isn't he? Because we've talked about a little bit, like there's times in my life when I am patient. There's times in my life when I am kind. There's times in my life when I'm not easily angered. There's times in my life when I'm not rude. But when he gets to the end and says, always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, love never fails. That's like one of those gulp moments. It's like, that's pretty intense. That's pretty significant. And what I start to realize is that as Paul walks us through the list, a couple of things emerge. One thing that I start to learn is I start to realize that love, like tangible love, is often not in the big, flashy, blow-it-out moments of life. But oftentimes, the love that God requires from us and for others is seen in the everyday, simple acts that we're not often prepared for or even expected in our own life to see happen. Like, think about it for a moment. Think about any relationship you have with your spouse, with your kids, with coworkers, with friends. You can plan these over-the-top, incredible acts of love. You can do it around like birthdays. You can do it around anniversaries. We even throw Valentine's Day in there. You can buy great gifts. You can take someone out for dinner. You can take them on a trip. You can do incredibly amazing things. They're well planned. They're well orchestrated, and you deliver them, right? But then imagine if in every other element of your life you never showed any love to them. Is that relationship really going to fly? Is that really going to grow? I'm not saying, listen, I'm not letting anyone off the hook. I'm not saying don't worry about birthdays. I'm not saying don't worry about anniversaries. Don't buy your spouse a really nice gift. But what I am saying is this, is oftentimes love is best displayed not in the extravagant, but in the day-to-day. Because go back to that list. When Paul says love is kind and love is patient, does anyone here actually wake up in the morning and like, I am planning an act of patient love today. So honey, if you can just be late again, if you can just not do what I need, if you can just do that, I want to display an act of patience for you this morning. Like, who does that, right? Who says, you know what, this morning, I am going to work, I'm going to give you the love of, I'm not going to keep any records of wrongs. And so if you can just forget to take out the garbage, if you can just forget to unload the dishwasher, if you can just forget to put the toilet seat down, I am not going to remember any of it. Right? No one plans for that list. At least I don't plan for the list. Right? It just suddenly starts to appear in your life. And this is where I want to land this morning. When it comes to this element of showing love and understanding that it often comes in the unexpected, unplanned moments in life, I feel a tension. And I thought I'd use a little bit of a word diagram here. I saw it from another guy, a guy by the name of Andy Stanley in the States, and it was really helpful to me, so I'm going to show it to you. I don't just put obstacles up here for me to weave in around about. There is a method to this, right? And the tension I feel in my life when it comes to this type of love is a difference between expectation and behavior. I have the expectation in my life that I am going to be loving. I have the expectation in my life that I'm going to have a love that always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. I have the expectation that my love will never fail. I mean, that's the bar we want to reach, right? That's what we're looking for. A love that is patient, a love that is kind, a love that's not easily angered. That's the expectation. That's what I want. The problem is behavior hangs out way over here. And what I start to realize in my life is that there is a gap between expectation of love and the behavior of love. That what I want to do and what I actually do. Because oftentimes these acts of love are unplanned and unprepared. And so when someone is late, or when someone lets me down, or when someone does something that drives me completely batty, not once, but twice and a third time, I know that love is not supposed to get easily angered. But it seems so far away that I don't know how to close the gap. And so this morning, I want to work on just a simple mental exercise that is going to help us, I believe, make 1 Corinthians 13 not just simply a nice passage we read, not just simply a song that we can sing, not just simply words that we can throw onto a card, but a reality in our life where we can have the behavior of a love that is patient and a love that is kind, a love that does not envy, a love that does not boast. That these are not just simply an expectation and words we say, but a reality that we live. So I have a question for you this morning, because it's going to be necessary if you're going to apply this to your life. Show of hands, we're going to be real honest and authentic. My hands are already up, so I'm already telling you the answer to this question for me. But by a show of hands, safe place, don't worry. How many of you talk to yourself? Okay, good. All right. Perfect. You can throw your hands down. Okay, good. Anyone who didn't throw your hands up, my goal by the end of this morning is to convince you the importance of talking to yourself. Right? Because I think one of the keys for us to get from expectation to behavior is not just simply, do I talk to myself, but rather, what are you talking to yourself about? What are you allowing to play through your mind? Because that is a critical key to get you into a more loving reality. So that love doesn't just simply become a word we speak about, but it becomes something we live out. Not just simply so that you can come out of here and say, yeah, that's wonderful. I want to become more loving in my life. And then you show up to Swiss Chalet and your order shows up and it's cold and it's wrong. They give you salad instead of French fries. And suddenly the idea that love is patient and not rude just goes away, right? How does that become more of a reality? Because I know that the minute you leave here, you're going to have opportunities to become more loving. And we want to do this well together. And so it comes down to a phrase. I think we have a choice. Because we don't have a choice in life over how other people are going to respond to us. We don't I guess we have a choice of just not allowing them to be a part of our life, but we don't have a choice when someone cuts us off. Or we don't have a choice when someone is late. Or we don't have a choice when someone messes up. We do have a choice with how we're going to then engage in our response to them. And I want to make it real simple. We have a choice between two phrases. And depending upon which phrase you choose to say to yourself, I believe, will determine your ability to close this gap. First option, you can assume the worst. You can assume the worst. You have the expectation of loving. But in order to do anything that the Bible verse just talked about, people are going to mess up. People are going to frustrate you. People are going to annoy you. People are not going to deliver what you'd asked of them. You can assume the worst. Or you can believe the best. You see, you read those last words up there. It says, love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. What does that look like? Assume the worst or believe the best? How do we get there? Which phrase do we begin to tell ourselves in order to see that become a better reality? Think about someone in your life. Think about multiple relationships in your life. Could be your spouse, could be your kids, could be your parents, it could be neighbors, it could be coworkers. I believe one of the keys, if we want to demonstrate an even greater element of love, is in determining what it is we say to ourselves. Let me give you a couple of kind of safe examples. But my hope is that you'll begin to drill down a whole lot deeper in the coming days and weeks. Think back to that scenario of going out for lunch afterwards at Swiss Chalet, right? You love going to Swiss Chalet. You're going to go there. You're going to beat, you're hoping right now the guy at the front is going to speak for too long because you want to beat those other churches to Swiss Chalet, right? Right? And so you get there and you order your quarter chicken meal and you're sitting there and you're sitting there and you're looking at your watch and you're starting to realize that, listen, cooking chicken is not rocket science. It's taken forever, and it takes like 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. Suddenly the chicken arrives, and then the chicken arrives, and it's like the blasphemy. You ordered white meat, and now there's dark meat, and you ordered French fries, and now there's a salad. You just heard this amazing message. I'm just throwing that in. On love. Right? You have a choice. If you assume the worst, what happens in that scenario? I can't believe I came back to this place. They always get my order wrong. That waitress, they had one thing to do. White meat, fries. White meat, fries. Like how can they forget? How can they forget? How busy can they possibly be? And the self-talk goes on and on and on and on. And guess what doesn't happen? There's no patience. There's no kindness. You're rude. And something that's not even included in the list, you're not generous when it comes to tip time. Because I'm going to make a statement. Because I assume the worst, I'm going to make a statement. What if you believe the best? Same scenario. Put it in order. Takes 10, 15, 20 minutes for you to get it. Ordered white meat, you get dark meat. Ordered fries, you get salad. What if you start to believe the best? What if you start to say, you know what? I have no idea what the server might have been going through. Maybe he has kids at home. And maybe one of the kids was sick and he was up all night. And he's tired and he's exhausted. But he's coming here. Maybe I don't know what's going on in their life. Maybe they have someone they love who's in a hospital and they're just a little distracted right now, but they still got to come to work. And the fact that they're at work is absolutely amazing. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I can eat dark meat. I can be healthy. Maybe they wanted me to be more healthy. You know, instead of fries, I'll bring them a salad. They're going to help me out. Maybe they are trying to help me out. And instead of being annoyed that I don't get to dip my fries in the chalet sauce, I should be happy that they're looking out for the best of me. That is believing the best. That gets you from a great sermon on love to the place of actually being loving, of actually being kind, of actually being patient, of actually not being rude, and maybe asking the server how they are doing instead of pointing out everything they're doing wrong. And that actually gets you to the place of giving them a generous tip. Believe the best, assume the worst. Another situation. What if you're walking down the street, maybe in downtown Hamilton or downtown Toronto or something, and someone approaches you that looks a little down and out on their luck? They look like they've probably been living on the street. And they come and they approach you and they're coming, they're asking you for some money. And you land on assume the worst. You're like, what have they done to get to a place like this? And I'm not going to give them any money because they're probably just going to blow it on booze and cigarettes. I'm not going to do that. And then you walk away and you think, okay, I wish there were opportunities for me to be more loving. But all we're doing is assuming the worst. What if you believe the best? And again, you say, I have no idea what those chain of events were that brought them to having to live on the street. I have no idea what they're going to spend their money on when I give it to them. But maybe they're just going to spend it on what they need in that moment. Maybe I'm just going to believe the best, and I'm going to be kind, and I'm going to be generous, and I'm going to be patient, and I'm not going to be easily angered. That is what gets you to this. Now, those are rather simple, kind of distant examples. What about when it comes to your spouse? What about when it comes to your kids, your parents, your coworkers, your boss, the neighbor who always borrows your stuff and never returns it? How does this work out in any of this? Now, I know you're probably sitting there and thinking, okay, yeah, real cute. You know, you got all your signs. You got all this. You don't know my situation, and you're right, I don't. And you're probably thinking, I'd like to tell you where you can put your believe the best. It's all right, you can smile. But what can we start doing in our life so that the expectation of love is not just simply an expectation, but it becomes a reality for us? Because maybe you're not so keen on the 3 words. I get it. Believe the best. I'll reduce it to 1 word for you. It's called grace. It's called grace. Grace is giving that which is undeserved, unmerited. It's believing the best. It's what God has given to us in Jesus. The grace that we don't deserve. But in order to get from God being a God of love to a God who acts of love, it comes down to grace. It comes down to believing the best. And this starts to interwork into all of our lives. When you may be sitting there wondering, what does God want from me? What does this look like in the midst of my life? Someone came up to Jesus one time and says, listen, there's like over 600 commandments in the Bible. There's a lot of them. Can you just narrow it down for us? What's the most important one? And Jesus says this, love God and love others. How do you think that happens? Assume the worst or believe the best? I think we know the answer to that. And the reality is that this doesn't just simply impact our relationship with others. It ultimately impacts our relationship with God. Because how do you respond to God when the unexpected and the unplanned begins to happen? When things don't go according to plan, do you start to assume the worst about God? Do you start to think God doesn't care? God is distant. God is never going to provide. God is never going to show up. And what this does is allows you to walk further and further and further away from him. But when the unexpected and the unplanned happens and you begin to believe the best, because God is good, because God is loving, it enables us to hang in longer to experience the reality of God. Believing the best, grace, is the action we need to take in order to get to the behavior of love. It changes everything. It changes our relationship with God. It changes our relationship with others. It changes what people see as our witness to the world. It's an opportunity for all of us today. I have no idea what some of you are experiencing in your life. I have no idea how others may have let you down, may have frustrated you, may have failed to follow through on promises they'd made to you. But if you believe the best, it can start to transform your life and their life and remind us of this incredible love that God has given to us. Let's pray.